open session and
Second.
It has been moved in second that we are, wait a minute, Ms. Pittman. That we
reconvene in open session.
reconvene to open session to adopt certification of closed session. All those in favor use the usual sign.
Aye.
Aye. None, are there any opposed? None opposed. Motion is carried.
Certification of closed session, whereas the Dinwiddie County School Board has convened a closed session on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas paragraph 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now and therefore be it resolved that the Dinwiddie County School Board hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only such business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the school board. Dr. Elaine Peterson, District 1, Pearson,
I certify.
Dwayne Walker, District 2,
I certify.
Barbara Pittman, District 3,
I certify.
Mary Benjamin, District 4,
I certify.
Jason Brown II, District 5.
Abstain.
Madam Chair, 4 certified, 1 abstain.
All right. I'll ask you now to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, are there any amendments to the agenda?
No amendments.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and second that we accept the agenda as presented. All of those in favor?
Aye.
It is moved and second that the agenda will be accepted as written.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the personnel report as it was presented to us today.
Second.
It has been moved and second that we accept the personnel report as presented. All of those in favor use the usual sign.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
One abstention.
One abstention. Okay, it has been approved. The next board matters.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Benjamin. I'm going to bring before you tonight a budget for your adoption based on the December 2024 governor's budget. We still do not have final word out of Richmond. The governor has until May 2nd to respond once again. And so we're still waiting. We're optimistically waiting. But having said that, we do need to move forward with approving a budget. What you have in front of you tonight, though, is a shorter version of the budget that I presented at the last couple of meetings. I just want to bring your attention to a couple of pages in here so you know exactly what it is we'll be approving. Having said that, we will be coming back to you once the governor has officially put out his budget. Once the county has put out their budget, we know that there are going to be some changes to this budget that you're going to have to approve in May. So we will be back as soon as we know that, and we'll give you that information just as soon as we know. I did number the slides this time, so it'd be easier for us to follow along. And so I just want to bring your attention over to slide number 6. Talk to you a little bit about the priorities that are in this budget. So you'll see slide 6. Priority 1 is compensation. We still have in the budget the 3% increase for all employees, and there you can see what it is going to cost us for the 3% increase for all employee groups. We also have in our budget an additional ESL teacher and moving a part-time speech pathologist to a full-time position. We're also asking the county to move all 7 of the SROs to the county operations budget. So that would also come out of our budget as well. And so that's on page 6. Priority 2 in our budget is the safety and security, and you'll remember that We have presented at several meetings. We talked about the security systems management system that Mr. Walters talked to us about. We still have in the budget right now $667,000 this year to put that into place. You remember we did talk about that the systems we currently have in place are becoming very obsolete. We do need to improve those. This would put in a plan that is very simple. It is actually comparable to what the county has in place and allows our two systems to talk to one another, which is optimal in this setting. So all in all, for the county revenue that we would need for Fund 205 would be $18.3 million. For Priority 1, we would need an additional $1.5 million, and for Priority 2, we'd need an additional $667,000. Okay? On slide 9 and 10, it just shows you how that is broken down. The revenue that we expect to receive is $62 million, and the expense that we expect to spend is $62.5 million. And you can also see the greatest percentage of our expenditures is in the area of instruction, as it should be. And then from that, you can see maintenance is 13% of our budget, and then transportation is 6% of our budget, and then technology is 4%, administration 3%, and attendance and health is 2% of our budget. Page 11 shows you then, we do expect to spend, in this school year with about $500,000, which, as you know, we typically go to the county and talk to them about returning that money to us for capital projects. We have a very long list of projects that need to be addressed. And so there you have that, that figure there. So that the change in the expenditures and the revenue is the $500,000 we do expect to end the school year with. Okay, so that's Fund 205. Then Fund 302 is the small capital fund. Every year we have been given $150,000 to address projects of a smaller nature, capital projects. This year, as we've done in past years, we did ask them to increase that amount to $300,000. So we could take on some things with fleet management, with painting, with furniture, and on a regular basis. And so we've asked to increase that small capital transfer on slide 14. And there you can see on slide 15 some of the large capital projects that we are looking to have funded this year, and then all the small capital projects that I just referenced. So the capital that we're looking to gain from the school system, from the county, would be $3.4 million. And as you can see, the large capital there, the DES, which you're going to hear more about this evening, boiler replacements, the key cards, parking lots, deferred maintenance, the annex roof, which we have a lot of county services there currently, and then buses. And then I spoke to you about those small capital projects as well. And we have a plan, and I know you have a copy of that plan. So if you flip over to page 17, that just gives you the school capital fund, the 302 fund. We expect to start with $5.1 million in that fund, with a transfer of $3.1 million, $300,000 increase in the small capital revenue, transfer from the school fund, the end of year balance, $500,000. We expect over the next school year to spend $7.6 million in capital projects, with an estimated ending balance of $1.4 million. Okay? Okay, and then it goes into some of the other funds that we have. You see there on slide 18, it talks to you about the textbook fund. All of these funds are very specific in nature. They can only be spent on what they're intended for. So you can see the textbook fund, we expect to start with $1.5 million, and then end with $800,000. Slide 19, we expect to start with the school nutrition fund with $600,000. And as you know, her budget is a standalone budget, and expecting to end the school year with $145,000. Okay. And then slide 20, I know we've had a lot of conversation around the grants. You see the grants Title 1, 2, 3, 4, 6B, special education and preschool. And then there's also early reading, Virginia Preschool Initiative, Project Graduation and Security, and all-in funding here. Beginning balance, we expect to start with $938,000. And we expect, though, we'll get additional revenue in the amount of $4.3 million, spend $5.4 million, and end with about $149,000. For example, the all-in funds will go away next year, so we have a lot of plans for those, and we'll be coming back to you very soon with that, what plans we have for the rest of those funds. On slide 21, you can see our debt services there. And then slide 22 gives you a summary of all funds, beginning balance, about $11.3 million, with the additional revenue of $78.1 million, expenditures of $83.7 with an ending balance of $5.7 million. And there you can see on slides 23 and 24, all funds combined. You can see all revenues there. 79% is about the school operating, is 79.3%. And then there you can see the expenses there at the bottom. So what has to happen now is we do need to ask you to approve this proposed budget as it's presented to you this evening, knowing that we're going to come back to the table to talk about changes once we get to see the governor's final budget and once we see the county's final budget as well. So I'm asking for approval this evening, or I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about this. And anything I can't answer, we have strategic advisors here that are happy to do so as well.
Are we to the point to issue contracts, but with a disclaimer in case the state doesn't?
Yes, so we
we
do feel confident. Ms. Branch has been working with her team, and we all met as a team. We are going to be releasing teacher contracts this week. There is always a disclaimer in all contracts that says as long as the funding is in place. But we are going to release the teacher contracts this week, and then her team has already started to work on the other contracts. But yes, ma'am, we're going to go ahead and do that. But we feel pretty confident in that, and we're going to be able to take care of that funding.
I have a question,
Yes,
Dr.
ma'am.
Weston. Now, maybe I missed it. Debt services?
Yeah, do you want to know the kinds of
Yeah,
things
what-
that
yeah,
are
what's
in debt
coming in debt
services?
services?
Would you like to talk about, Christy, a little bit about
Mhm.
what's in debt services?
So in the debt service payments are the payments for the high school
Mm-hmm.
and Sutherland Elementary mainly. Those are the two biggest pieces of it. Also there is, I have the detail right here. There's also some funding from previous projects, that we have some. I just wanna make sure I know what it is right off. the top.
Is the HVAC from Southside in there?
No.
No, okay.
I beg your pardon, yes, there's $5,000 is in there for Southside. But it's mainly the new elementary school, the new high school, and then we had, in 2012, we had, some loans, from previous projects. Some of it is, I'm sure, the work that was done at Dinwiddie Elementary.
Mhm.
And so the county refunded that and, refinanced it is is what most people think of it as. And so there's still some money left being paid on that every year as well. So,
How many years are left on that? Do we know?
okay, so the, elementary school and the high school will both be paid off in 2028.
Oh, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
The refunding of, the 2012A, will be paid off in 2034. And then there's also money that we borrowed from, DPSA, which is, the state sells bonds
Mm-hmm.
for construction every year, and you can apply for those. The maximum is $7.5 million that you can get towards a project. So when we built Sutherland Elementary and Dinwiddie High School, we of course applied for those because they come at a very, very small interest rate, like less than 2%, I think is what we paid. So we're still paying those back as well, and they will be paid in 2028.
Thank you.
So the biggest part of those two schools, and that's why when we met as the capital improvement team with the county, we talked about 2029 being a very good year for taking on any big projects from the school system.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Other questions? Or-
Are there any other questions? Anyone has any concern?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the fiscal year 26 school budget.
A second.
It has been moved and second that we approve the FY 2026, should I say proposed? Because we
budget.
make the school budget.
Yes.
The school budget. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So it's been in abstentions. Budget is approved.
Thank you. The next board matter that we have, I'm going to ask Mr. Walters to come to talk to you about the exterior repairs at Dinwiddie Elementary School.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Dinwiddie Elementary School, we've been working to get that job done. It's been several years on the, we got money for it, and we just haven't had a lot of luck. We've had some bad luck with it, but basically we took bids, we brought to you in, I believe, March, and we were really excited about getting the job done. And then we got a call from the vendor that said that they had underbid. It was a mistake made on their part, and they had underbid the job. So what we had to do was, they said they could not do the job for $522,000, which is what they bid. They gave us a price of $1 million, which is obviously a 100% markup. So a couple things with that is, number one, that was still less than the second bid that we got, which was much higher than that. But it also is against Virginia state procurement law to just accept that bid and move on. So we did get some legal advice from our lawyer. And basically the lawyer said that the Virginia Public Procurement Act, Section 2.24309, modification of the contract states that a contract may be increased by 25% or $50,000 without written approval from the governing body and adequate consideration from the contractor. So this increase was, 100%, $576,000. So we had to get written consideration from the contractor in order to move forward. So what we ended up doing was myself and Ms. Fleming met, and Brenda Austin, the procurement manager, met with the contractor, and the contractor agreed to do the job for $1,089,000. I think it's $1,089,000, $1,098,704, which the fair market price that would basically, he took off his 8% profit markup. So that was the consideration. He's basically doing it at cost for us. So we were able to come to terms with him. We did get the written consideration. The lawyer, our lawyer did say that she thought that was a fair consideration and that we were fine to move forward with this job. So I'm bringing this back before the board to ask for approval to move forward with this job. And it's still, the contractor also said he could start June 2nd as we scheduled and still get the job completed.
Mr. Walters, do we have an ongoing relationship with this company? Is this somebody that's done work for us before?
They have not. The reason we don't is because they're a very specific type of contractor. They do a lot of they do a lot of work where they restore things back to their original. A lot of times when you do restoration, you update them. Well, Dinwiddie Elementary School being the type of school and historical building, it's not officially a historical building, but it has a lot of historical aspects. We wanted it to look like it does now, but be fixed. So that's why it was important that we met with the contractor face to face. It was PBI Environmental. He, quite honestly, he came in and took full responsibility, which was a big thing for me. He took full responsibility for the mistake, and he wanted to work with us. He did want to start a relationship with Dinwiddie County Public Schools so he could do work for us. So this will be our first.
The only reason I ask is because, I'm aware that sometimes contractors underbid, but that seems like a huge goof up.
It was.
And so
And I didn't get into the details, but I can. Basically, they had a guy who was a seasoned worker for them that left right before the bid was due. He worked the whole contract, worked the whole project, and then took another job and left like in October when the bids were due, right at the end of October. And so they had a younger guy step in, and he made a lot of mistakes. And it was, again, the company's mistake. The second lowest bid, though, was considerably higher than the $1,098,000. So while we felt it was low, we felt that the second number that PBI gave us was in the ballpark, was correct.
Did we just have one other bid? Or
We did.
Okay.
Again, it was the specialty type of this job. It doesn't get a lot of people. It's not the average
What is it that we're
builder.
fixing? What is it we're fixing?
We're fixing the facade of Dinwiddie Elementary School.
Next to the roof?
The roof, the lintel, all the masonry work, all that, the concrete work at the top, the windowsills. The big thing, that if you ever look up there, the dental work around it, it's all wooden. We want that to look like that. You know, that was a very unique building built by the Works Progress Administration, so we'd like it to look exactly like that, just not leak. So it's a lot of refabricating things that they don't normally do because they don't make them that way anymore. So. And the big thing is that this building is really getting compromised by water infiltration, so.
Pastor Walker, to calm any anxieties. In my full-time job, I've had to create quotes for a number of things, and I can tell you that just one formula being wrong in an Excel spreadsheet or something can like double or cut a price in
Yeah.
half. So
Absolutely.
this is kind of normal. I'm not, taking up anyone's defense, but I've seen it.
Well, and the big thing for me was the guy said, look, we made a mistake. You know, he didn't come in and fight it. He didn't come in and say, look, it's on you. He said, we made a mistake. We want to make it right. And that, maybe it's personal, but that meant a lot to me. You know, that's hard to do for some companies.
I would just want to make sure that we don't get taken for a ride.
No.
Once we start work, we're locked in at
Yeah.
that point, and then they start coming in with change orders, that could be.
Yeah. And I don't want to speak too much about the other company that bid, but I can tell you it was still about 80% more than what we're paying the other company that does this professionally.
So to me, like, I would feel more confident with something like this if we had a third bid, but if it's hard to find people to bid on this, because if theirs is that much higher, then does the possibility exist that this company is still way off and they're going to get into a job and then realize, hey, we're still underbid. That's all.
Yeah.
But if they're locked in with a contract,
They are.
they're locked in.
Yeah.
Were they not locked in at the other number?
They were locked in at the other number, but,
I mean, I don't want to put anybody out of work.
Well, yeah, full disclosure, he would have closed his company.
Yeah,
So he
I
did
don't
ask
do
us to
that.
negotiate it.
I don't
Yeah.
want to do that to anybody. I just don't want us to get.
Yeah, and this was not just somebody who we had coming in and doing prices. This was the president of the company that came and met with us, and he said he had personally done the numbers himself.
Okay.
So at this point, man, I don't even want to think about it. I'm not doing it now, but at
No,
this
I
point, if they can't do it,
Well,
we're gonna have to move on.
I'll make the motion that we go ahead and approve it. I just wanted to.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to get it done right.
So she seconded.
It has been moved and second that we accept that we approve the, report coming from Mr. Walters to do the exterior repairs to Dinwiddie Elementary School. All of those in favor use the usual sign. Aye. Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent matters?
Yes, so the first we have this evening, the academic services team is coming to talk to us about textbook adoptions that are scheduled for next year and update to curriculum resources. You guys have had a busy couple of days. Is it on? Yes.
All right. Well, good afternoon. We'll try to be brief, and we have a presentation just to kind of give us an overview of where we are with our resources. As you know, the state has changed their timelines since COVID. It used to be that it was one subject every about 6 years, and so we could kind of follow along, and we didn't have multiple standards coming out in the same year, but that all changed. And so what you have here are kind of the updated timelines and when VDOE has released things for each core area. So even though we will be looking next year to have full implementation of the 2023 history standards, VDOE has not yet released an approved textbook. They just released our instructional guides in April so that we can start working on that curriculum work over the summer. Our mathematics standards will be tested this spring for the first time, and then we are in our final year of the Savas textbook adoption. So we did request those to review, as well as some of our new list approval that the state just gave out this month. So we'll be looking at those. And then you'll see for English and science, we are in those full adoption years, and the new science standards will be coming out, but per VDOE, the 2025 science standards of learning are very similar to the 2018 standards. They're just looking to enhance the instructional guides, but it more affects the high school level because they came out with the level 2 courses. So biology to anatomy, biology to genetics, and our environmental science. So all of those second level courses at the high school level are more defined in the science area. So I'm going to hit on the secondary side, and then you just plug in whenever. I think, after Ms. Valentine and I have talked to different divisions, we've looked at different resources. We feel pretty confident that Five Ponds Press will be the direction that we go K through 8, just because of the rich resources that they have historically produced. They are aligned to the 2023 standards. We have received sample copies, and our teachers are in the process of starting to review those now so that we can roll into the curriculum writing piece of that to make sure that our teachers are prepared for the fall. High school is a bit more tricky because we don't have an approved textbook list, and there's not many publishers. You have to kind of pick and choose based on what is the most aligned to your specifics. So right now we use the Savas publisher for government. The instructional guides that the VDOE is producing is supposed to be hyperlinked and active, and to where there's primary documents, secondary documents, and things and resources that teachers are supposed to use, including some of those partnership opportunities with historical societies, museums, and other things like that. So I will come up with an update as we know a little bit more about how history is going to look at the high school level, but that is the direction we're going for there. Anything on elementary? Go for it.
I have a question. So are we're buying the rights to the books and downloading them on the computers, or are we buying books for classroom sets?
So I like for K-8 primarily there to be a physical
book. Okay.
The both history, we do have the physical book for the Five Ponds Press, and there is an online version as well, and teacher resources. So what the teachers are using right now to get full access and see all of the pieces is digital. But I think it's helpful to be able to start looking at that now before the school year ends. But we do plan to have the physical book for the students in the middle school and elementary school.
Okay.
Yes.
And to reiterate what Carly said, as much as possible in each content area, we're seeking to adopt something that has both the digital and the print version. As she stated, we're excited about in elementary having an actual tangible textbook, because what they currently have right now leaves much to be desired. It's much more of a resource rather than a textbook. So in the previews, it's very age appropriate, kid friendly. It is aligned, which is the number one thing that we're looking for, but then it also provides those print resources like she spoke of, so that teachers actually have something that will supplement the actual curriculum and the units that can be utilized as a grade. Just as a reminder, and we will come back before you shortly, in 5th grade, we will be embarking on the 5th grade Dinwiddie history. And so K through 4, the adoption for Five Ponds Press mainly aligns with that.
And one of the things that we also talked about was our HMH, our materials for English, there are some connections to history and science. And so to make it easier for teachers, we have been exploring ways to show those cross-curricular pieces, which I think is going to be really beneficial to both teacher and student. Mathematics is our next area that we're looking to update. And like I said, this is the last year of our current adoption, so we will review what we have. But our teachers at the secondary level have been piloting Math Space. A lot of our teachers go to professional development conferences where they're able to engage with the VDOE updates, but as well as, you know, the publishers putting out their information and seeing the demonstrations to see what is going to be more engaging for their students and get their perspective. So they are piloting that right now. Our students, I've gotten to watch firsthand where they have gone in with the digital side of the Math Space textbook to manipulate shapes and be able to see how it affects surface area and volume and things of that nature. But it also has print materials, worksheets, and things like that that the teachers can use to supplement their instruction. So like I said, we have tons of boxes that we will be putting out for display for the Savas as well. And then you guys have a few things for elementary.
Yes, and I apologize, when we updated the slide presentation, it did not update to the lovely ladies here. So for elementary, our math curriculum team and our adoption committee has been hard at work narrowing down the most effective, that we feel is the most effective in rating those based on different things like alignment, also same things I spoke about earlier, just kid-friendly, engaging, and the resources that are available, making sure there are quality resources available and attached to it. So those were narrowed down to KIDM and STEM Scopes Math for elementary. And then the next part of the process will be parents, community members, so on and so forth will have an opportunity to come in and look at those textbooks, to preview them, provide feedback. There will be a QR code. I may be jumping ahead, but there will be a QR code available for them to be able to provide that feedback. But most importantly, our number one stakeholder, aside from our students, our teachers, and giving them the opportunity to provide feedback on those as well. So our hope is to narrow down between these two that are listed, the KIDM and the STEM Scopes, to just one, and then compare and contrast that to the Savas that we currently have. And so for science, as Carly stated, our curriculum teams will continue that work during the summer to continue to build and enhance curriculum with more hands-on experiences. We are currently utilizing in K through 8 STEM scopes. And so for elementary, I'll just say, while I have the microphone, that as much as possible, our curriculum teams, especially as it relates to ELA with HMH, we are trying to map out and align the ELA, the science, and the history to reinforce that cross-curricular focus. Also because we want science to not be, and history for that matter, to not be the area that we don't get to, because we're spending so much time focusing on history, English and math. We want to help to reiterate that all of the subject matters are important, but when we took a deep dive into the data, we found that we have a lot of work to do in the area of science, and the main component that we're missing is that hands-on experimental piece.
All right. So English, I think we've kind of hit on, but our high school is currently in their final year, or will be going into their final year of the current adoption, which will give them the opportunity to spend the year really digging into the resources and finding the one that they would like to adopt moving forward. The curriculum that they are using has been compared to the new updated standards, so that they knew any additions of subtraction, whatever, that they had to, consider when they're preparing for the new standards. So our current curriculum is written with the Savas textbook, and even though that was our adoption before the standards changed, our curriculum is written to reflect the new standards. So we will be using all of next year to evaluate the adopted or approved resources for ELA for the high school, and then I'll make a recommendation for that for the next fall. So moving forward with our process and timeline, here we are right now. looking at the review of the potential texts. We will be putting a nice display out front for anyone that wants to review any of the materials, specifically the Five Ponds Press for history and the Math Space for math, as well as we'll be seeking some samples to have out display for elementary math. We will make a recommendation based on our feedback from, you see the QR code there, but it just goes to a Google survey where we'll allow anybody to identify, are they a community member, a parent, teacher, and at what level, and then provide that feedback for our curriculum teams and textbook review committee to consider when we make our final recommendations, so that we can spend this summer making sure that we embed those resources into our curriculum teacher website. So that's where we are. Any questions we can answer for you?
Are there any questions for Ms. Valentine and Ms. Carly?
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Benjamin, we just have one more presentation this evening. We're gonna have Ms. Valentine, I believe, gonna come back up, and this has actually been a conversation, and a lot of research has gone into this for quite some time. So she's gonna come and engage you all in the literacy discussion around Midway Elementary School.
Board Chair, Vice Chair, board members, and all in attendance, good afternoon again.
Good afternoon.
And as Dr. Weston stated, this is a point of discussion that has been considered for quite some time. But before starting, I do just want to stress that it's just that, a discussion. So no official decision making is required, but more so just points presented for your consideration. And so we will be looking at a Title I discussion and literacy needs as it relates to Midway Elementary School. So when we talk about Title I, unfortunately out in the community, sometimes there's just a negative connotation or a negative stigma attached to it. And so that's because sometimes people don't understand exactly what is Title I and what does it entail. So we wanted to cover that Title I is a federally funded program. The purpose of it is designed to provide additional resources and support to schools that are serving high percentages of low-income students. So what are the goals of Title I? First and foremost, it seeks to improve academic achievement for all students, provide additional supports, resources, and interventions, and strengthen parent and family engagement. So why are we having this conversation exactly? Currently, 4 out of our 5 elementary schools in the district already benefit from Title I support. What we have observed recently is an increase in the community eligibility provision, also known as CEP, considered to be the poverty rate. So in 2020, you see a small progression there, kind of a timeline, if you will. In 2020, specific to Midway, we were hovering around 40%. 2021, again, hovering around 40%, not much of a change. Again, 2022, around 40%. 2023, 45, and 2024, close to 46%. So while it's not a significant increase, you do see that it's trending upward. Also, we observe the need for additional academic support and intervention programs, and also a growing student population with diverse learning needs. Overall, this data is comparable to Title I schools, to the schools that are Title I within the division. A lot of this is not a surprise because we are post-COVID and we don't like to talk about post-COVID, but I would be remiss if I didn't say that it has done a number, not just on the academic needs of our students, but also on the economic needs of our families that we're serving. So that's first and foremost why we're having the conversation. The economic piece and then the academic piece where students are demonstrating a need. Also there, the link that is linked there below links to a spreadsheet that compared the fall VALS assessment for our K through 3 students for all 5 elementary schools. For the sake of time, we don't have to get into that tonight, but I believe you do have access to that. And you will see we first started to have this conversation around the fall of the year when we first began to embark on the VALS assessment. And the interesting piece is in some areas, Midway fell below some of our other schools that demonstrate an even higher academic need. I do want to say that is not a bad thing. That is in no way a reflection or related to instruction. We have wonderful, hardworking teachers in every elementary school in our division. But as you know, there were some growing pains at the start of the year. Teachers had a lot on their plates. There was a new curriculum that really wasn't new, but was new for some. And so we had to go through implementation. So just like any year, any assessment, we want to start where we start, good, bad, or indifferent. The goal is to grow. So when we saw those initial fall scores, that's what prompted the conversation. When you access that link, you will also see mid-year compared, and you will see that there was an increase. So we're going to continue to review the data. That's why it's just a discussion right now. And so we are eager to look at the spring data as we get it in. So if we were to pursue this, what will this mean for Midway? They would have more access to family engagement resources. A requirement of Title I is that we have to utilize funds to promote family and community engagement. So that can look like events, that can look like providing parents with literacy resources. It will also include additional literacy supports. This does not mean that it would necessarily be an additional literacy person. Anytime we bring or consider positions to the table, we have to look at sustainability. And so we would never want to put someone in the grant in 1 year and the next year not be able to continue to keep them. So we would have to get creative with what that looks like. Again, not just necessarily another person, but that could look like, for example, I'm at school A and I go over to support school B in the area of literacy. It would also look like potential support from our lead Title I literacy interventionist, which is Ms. Irvin. Ms. Irvin is instrumental in our Title I schools about going in and actually modeling what these lessons look like, modeling what it looks like to utilize high quality instructional materials. Because a lot of our teachers now, we have the implementation down. They know it in theory, and we're helping them to move to what does this look like in practice. And so she's been instrumental in modeling that for them. Also, potential support from our behavior specialist, Mr. Timmons. If you know anything about Mr. Timmons, he is phenomenal. He is definitely a blessing. And his focus is not just teaching appropriate behaviors and how to deal with challenging behaviors. He does not focus on the student per se, but more so helping to build the toolkit of the teacher on how to address those behaviors in a productive and positive reinforcement way. Please remember again that this is just a discussion and no final decision has been made. Overall, it's also important to remember that as a county, we will not receive extra funding if we did include Midway within our Title I budget. That would just mean that the current funding that we have, it would be based on school allocation amongst all of the schools. So that would mean essentially that some of the funding that is currently provided amongst 4 schools would be taken from them to include Midway in the equation, if that makes sense.
Where do we get the information that tells us the poverty level? Is that
Great
strictly
question.
from lunch tickets?
Great
lunch
question.
applications?
So previously, it was based on the free and reduced school lunch application.
Right.
Since we no longer do those applications and we have that grant where everyone receives free lunch, that comes directly from the Virginia Department of Social Services. So essentially, it's based on the amount of families that are receiving assistance.
Okay.
And it's interesting that you brought that up, that, we do have some new numbers that are getting ready to, they're trying to verify right now, which would actually put us in a higher bracket in this community. Yes,
the amount
for
of
people
money.
living in poverty in
Yes,
this
ma'am.
community.
So now the money that we get, you said we wouldn't get any additional
No.
money.
No, ma'am.
But we could potentially lose, so what would happen is the same amount of money that we always receive for Title I would then now be distributed amongst the 5 schools, but based on a percentage is
Correct.
how it'd be calculated.
So the question I have about all this is, if there's no additional money coming in, why do we pursue? We can just spread what we've got now without pursuing the designation, right? What is the point of pursuing the designation?
That's a wonderful question. So as it relates to Title I is considered to follow the book bag as not just the state, but also the government likes to refer to it. And so with that, it's based on, again, on the students' academic and economic needs. And so with that, we have to ensure that we're going above and beyond for those students that qualify. So we are literally receiving the question from the state, what are you doing to make sure that you're going above and beyond for your Title I students versus your non-Title I schools? And so I'll give an example. In many of the initiatives, especially literacy initiatives that we embark on, our goal is to never leave any child out or leave any school out, and to provide, equitable and quality experiences for all of them. So, for example, with that, we would never want to say we're providing this for example, these 4 schools and not providing it for Midway. But when we do that, we kind of bring attention to
ourselves. I
Correct.
follow. So there's no mandate that requires us to pursue Title I, but because we've pursued it for other schools, we've kind of put ourselves in a position where we need to pursue
Well,
it for.
but also though, if it's not designated, could we legally take the person that's being paid by Title I funds and send them over there?
No.
The
no.
answer is no, so
Right.
we need
I see.
we need
That
to.
makes sense.
Right. And I think to Dr. Weston's point, and I didn't want to include that or speak on that too much right now because they are preliminary numbers.
Yes.
But the CEP numbers that have been, that we have received, they were sent in on April 15th. They're currently being voted on, so we're waiting for the official word. Once we get that, if those are approved, the increase is significant. Which means, again, we're seeing the academic need. Granted, I do want to say not as significant as some of our other schools, but the economic need is staggering. And so not to generalize or stereotype, the concern is if that continues to trend that way that it's going, then of course we can anticipate that the academic need is going to continue to increase as well. And so I think, the threshold, and I can provide those numbers for you all, but the threshold Midway has essentially, over the last few years, been just a bit over what is needed for the academic and the economic need. But again, as we continue to increase and stagger, the concern is, okay, do we need to revisit this conversation? I think the other piece is it's not just one data point to consider. For example, wonderful teachers, experienced and veteran teachers, but then also what does that look like as they begin to retire and fade out? Are we going to see even more of an academic need at that time? But great questions, and that's why it's just a discussion. When you start to look at the data, you can see it either way.
How does this affect our teachers? Like, are teachers typically in favor of being designated a Title I school? Or?
Great question. So we recently went to Midway to present this exact presentation to Midway teachers to get their feedback as one of the most important stakeholders. And they asked the same questions that you all asked. And they know that it's been a reoccurring conversation year after year. And so for the most part, they were in favor of it. I didn't experience any that were against it or saw anything wrong with it. I think also they're at the point where any assistance they can get, they appreciate it. Because as you know, prior to this year, they went without a reading specialist for some time. So, they also want to feel like they're getting what they need. And as far as the family engagement piece as well, I think they're blessed because they have a lot of family involvement and parents that are very supportive, but they also have to rely on their PTO a lot for a lot of the events that they would like to carry out. And so with this, it just also helps to promote consistency. That's not the number one reason for considering this, but the goal is to take a little bit of the load off them and not to have them to feel like they, are responsible for the instruction, but they're responsible for coordinating these and paying for these events because a lot of them are a part of the PTO as well.
And it could be that we decide to move in this direction and nothing changes for
Right.
Midway. That the resources that they currently have are the resources they'll continue to have, with the exception, I think, of the family engagement.
Correct.
So it could be that nothing changes because we do have some pretty substantial needs at some of the other schools as well. But we won't know until we move that direction.
Correct. And I'm not sure if I covered these or not, but I'll go through them just the same. Some common questions that we receive: will Title I change our curriculum? No, it enhances what we already offer by providing more resources and instructional support. Does this mean that our school is low performing? No, Title I is based on student needs, not school performance. Not in this county, but I've received, different comments being made like, oh, if my school is Title I, it's going to bring my property value down. Not true, because you will find Title I schools in affluent areas, in rural areas, in urban areas. So that's not accurate. And how does Title I impact parents? Parents will have greater opportunities to be involved in school decisions, workshops, and student learning. One piece of Title I is we also have a parent advisory council that we meet twice a year, and it goes out in our survey information. We have, again, they help to plan our Title I events. Every Title I school has to have a school-wide plan, so they help to inform those decisions as well. And that's just another piece that those parents will be able to participate in. And so, what's next in the discussion? As I alluded to earlier, the school eligibility is determined by the student economic data. So as soon as we get those official numbers, we will share those with you all. We will continue to get input from teachers, staff, and parents. Typically, we gather that through a form of a survey. If we chose to move forward, or if you all chose to move forward with consideration of that, an application has to be submitted for Title I designation. The funding is then allocated and the support programs begin. And of course, we're here to get your input as a school board. And if you would like to discuss that at a later date in more detail, especially after we receive the updated numbers, we would love to do that.
Now, I don't have any questions. I think this has been good for me also, that it's really explained
Yes, ma'am.
well, and I think you're going about the right way, which I would know you wouldn't do it any other way.
Right.
That you go to the teachers, the parents, and all of them know that it's not, because some people do have a negative view of when you say Title I and you start with all the titles and they say, oh no, that's not good. But you have explained it well, and I thank you for that.
Thank
and
you.
for me also.
Thank you all.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Valentine? Is there anything else, Dr. Wilson, where I can't find my paper?
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, that's it.
That's it.
We will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and